The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. Webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
I found it myself. I think it's we got it. Okay, we can start it. We can start anytime now. We're on? Okay. Just one moment. Stay wet. Okay, thank you. Appreciate you all being here today to the City of Plant City Planning Board meeting Wednesday, February 24th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item of business is approval of the minutes of January 27th. I'm sorry.
Move for approval.
Roll call first. Okay. Approval. We're going to do a roll call first. Excuse me. Yeah. So stand by, Bonnie. I'm going to carry that forward. Yeah.
Okay.
Board Member Wood,
Present.
Board Member Burris, Board Member Burris, Board Member Carr,
Present.
Board Member Driggers,
Here.
Board Member Thurston,
He called in to be absent this meeting.
thank you. Board Member Rodwell,
Here.
Board Member Jones,
Present.
thank you.
Thank you. Now, first item of business, approval of the minutes of January 27th. Bonnie, are you still stepping in for the motion on that? Yeah.
Yeah, move for approval.
Okay. Is there a second? We have a second from Mr. Rodwell. Any discussion? All in favor say, we want to call a roll call? Yeah.
Board Member Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Jones,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
thank you.
Thank you. At this point, we're open for public comment. Is there anyone that wishes to make a public comment? Madam Clerk, did we get any one on the line that wishes to make a public comment?
No requests were received.
I'll ask one more time. Are there any public comments? Thank you. Close public comments. First item of business is a presentation from the McIntosh Preserve Integrated Water Management Plan. That's a mouthful. Welcome. Good to see you again. Yeah.
Good to see you, Planning Board. Thank you for the invitation to be here today to present this plan to you, the Planning Board, and also our members in the audience. My name is Jack Holland. I'm Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of Plant City. And we'd like to present to you what we are planning to do out at McIntosh Preserve, which is out on the north side of town. We have some slides here that will give you some general information. We are in the process of applying for a grant with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And part of that process is public engagement. And that's one of the reasons why we're here tonight, today rather, but also would like just to bring you up to date so that you can spread the word of what we're trying to do out at McIntosh Preserve. So a couple of the things that we will cover today. We're waiting on our slide. There we go. We're going to go over what the integrated water management solution is that we're planning to do, the project objectives, our project phases and timeline, and how we move forward with this project, as well as the project funding and the grants that we are looking for at this time. Going back in time a little bit, in 1998, McIntosh parcel was purchased for $1.1 million through the Florida Communities Trust and the Hillsborough County Environmental Lands Acquisition and Protection Program. The city did not put money into it up front, but it is owned by the city of Plant City. That was deeded to the city for our use. From 2004 to the present time, about 120 acres to the east side of the property have been used for stormwater treatment of the city's canal system through an agreement with Swiftmud. In 2015, we opened the parcel and to utilize the entire 363 acres as a passive recreational park. There are walking trails and hiking trails throughout the park, and we are currently have $600,000 to provide additional park features, which we will bring up in just a moment. The parcel is located in north of Plant City. On the north side is Knights Griffin Road. On the west side is Highway 39, North Alexander. So this graphic gives you an overview of the actual parcel, 363 acres. And I would like to bring up Lynn Spivey. She is with us today. She is our Director of Utilities for the City of Plant City, and she will come up and go over some of the more technical details of what the management plan is all about. Lynn?
Thank you. Good morning, Planning Commission. I'm going to start back on this slide so that you can see the whole parcel again. So the parcel is about 363 acres or so. And you can see on the right-hand side of this is some elements that we'll talk about. Originally, a portion of this parcel was used for stormwater treatment. So about 120 so acres of it were used to flow water from the East Canal through the system, and that would take up nutrients. So this was a long-standing project with the Water Management District that ended in about 2014, was about the 15-20 year point for the project. So we learned a lot from this project. We learned that it does treat stormwater very well, but it was problematic in a few different areas. There was a narrow intake into the canal, into the intake system. The existing system had some poor hydrology, and then the existing alum system, which we used for polishing phosphorus, was also problematic. Then the park invested also at this time. There were park elements, some picnic benches, and some shade covering. It was difficult to use because the park was really difficult to traverse in general. So we learned a lot, and we took from that experience, and now we want to expand on it. So we went to the Water Management District with a much bigger project. This is, we're calling an integrated water management project, and it's because we're seeking a lot of environmental benefits. We're looking at a more holistic way to treat the water cycle. So not only stormwater, but treatment in general and water quality we're looking at. So what we're going to try to do with this entire parcel, now that we're going to use the entire 360 something acres, we're going to do stormwater treatment, but on a bigger scale. We're going to use it to mitigate localized flooding in the area. We're going to use it for water supply because now we're treating water much better. So we're really replenishing the aquifer with better water. And we're going to put a crown jewel on top of it with a beautiful natural habitat park. So this is a little bit better depiction of now how we're going to, over the entire parcel, really utilize the existing property. So we're expanding the wetlands and improving hydrology. We're going to route the stormwater much differently so that we don't have this narrow intake. We're going to reduce nutrients, and we have 3,000 pounds of nitrogen and 1,500 pounds of phosphorus. That's what we promised the Water Management District. But after the first phase of this project is now just being complete for 30% design, we're finding that we're actually going to have much better rejection. So this picture really depicts what we're going to do, and we're calling them cells. We're going to dig out portions of it. We're going to mound portions of it. We're going to have connected flow and cellways through it. So really improving the hydrology of the site. And we're improving what this is right now is really a starved wetland. It's either really dry or really wet. So it's hard to keep the wetland species alive and have them do what they need to do. So we're really spreading things out so that we can make this what it was before, beautiful Florida wetland. So this picture really detects what we're going to do from what we have now to what we're proposing. So these numbers represent topographical elevations of the site as it exists now. You can see on the picture on the right, we're going to change that drastically. So we're going to even out some areas, dig out some areas so that we can hold more water and really make a more even flow across the site. And for folks who are adjacent to these parcels, we're really hoping they're going to see a great improvement. So flood mitigation controls. So we're putting pathways in. Before really the water came in through that little intake serpentine, we called it, and then it kind of flowed through some wetland species. It wasn't an easy hydrology. So what we're doing right now is adding spillways, weirs, control devices so that we really can flow the water through the system. So we're assisting water flow. We have cell-to-cell control fixtures that we're putting in. We're going to have normal flows. When it's really wet, we have places that we can take water through the system. So, and we modeled this besides just saying we can regrade it. This was put into a hydraulic model that the Water Management District has approved. We've gone back and forth. So we have proved, simulated that this can really work. Water supply. So this picture shows really our natural sand aquifer that we have, the sand layers that we have before our water table. What we're doing is in times of natural storm events, we'll have water there to keep our plant species alive. But in times that it's mostly dry out there, we're going to put our highly treated reclaimed water to keep those plant species alive and well. So this will help us in several different ways. This will take our reclaimed water from our water reclamation facility and have a place for it to be used very beneficially, which helps us with our permitting for our plant. And again, it's going to help the area have the hydration that it needs to stay a wetland. And when that happens, you make sure that all the species that enjoy wetlands are there all the time. The other portion of this project that we're doing includes taking our reclaimed water, again from our water reclamation facility, treating it to even more advanced state, and then putting it into our drinking water aquifer. These are projects that are being done across the state and across the nation right now, recycling water. So Plant City already has a very award-winning plant where we treat our water to high standards. We meet almost primary and secondary drinking water standards now. This is going to take some additional treatment and put it again into our drinking water aquifer. These are some pictures of the type of pilot systems that we are going to employ to make sure that we can treat that water very safely before we put it into the drinking water aquifer. So we're looking at some pilot systems right now. We're in the midst of about to purchase one of these. These are membrane type systems with advanced oxidation, everything that is needed to take our water, treat it even more, and again, put it into our pristine aquifer. And I'm going to turn it back over to Jack now.
Thank you. I'm going to step in to describe this slide. This is showing you what we are currently doing today, literally today at the park. You'll see the trail system that's being installed as we speak. We should be opening this trail up the 1st of May. It's adding 2.2 miles of pedestrian trail, improved trail with an elevated 3-story wildlife observation tower and some improved parking areas. There'll be some educational signage going on as well in the park. And this is in the northwest corner, which would be the top left corner as you looked at the overall picture. This is an upland area, which is a wooded oak hammock and pine trees, and then there are some wet areas with cypress. A lot of different wildlife in this protected area of the preserve. So these trails are literally under construction right now. We'll be opening up on the 1st of May. So I hand it back to Lynn.
Jack gets the fun parts of this project. And again, the reason that we can do this is because this wetland has so many different features. We've got beautiful oak canopies, we've got pine trees, and then we've got open wet areas. So it's going to be really something special. So I'll talk a little bit about the project benefits. I'll try not to bore everybody, but there are multifaceted benefits to this project, which is why the Water Management District is funding it at 50% with us. We're going to put up to 1.5 MGD, and again, what we're finding now is that we're going to be able to put even more water out there than what we had initially promised. We're going to augment our aquifer by, again, putting water out there that we can clean through our natural sand filter of our what's out there in the wetland. We're going to mitigate flooding by regrading the entire site so that we can contain more water in different cells. We're collaborating with Parks Department. So besides what Jack is seeking right now, and the reason we're here is because we're reaching out for a grant. So we're using Parks grants through the FERDAP program, and we're using co-funding through the Water Management District, and then also we're seeking legislative appropriations. So this is a project where we're seeking funding in many different areas because of the multifaceted benefits. And then this integrated water approach is really what we're looking to do so that we can have independence here in the city of our water supply. We sit next to two regional water suppliers, Tampa Bay Water on the Hillsborough side, and then in Polk County, there's the Polk Cooperative. These are large regional supplies where you have many different cities and counties that have to share water. Plant City is very unique right now in that we are independent in our water supply. So this helps us to stay that way. I'm just going to briefly go through some similar Florida projects that have been very successful in their areas, and it helps us to understand what a project like this can bring to the city. So this is Sweetwater Wetlands Park. This is really one of the, at this point, most successful projects in the state as far as award-winning and what it brings to Gainesville. This is about 125 acres. It's a man-made wetland, so ours is different. We're rehydrating a natural wetland, but this project, people flock there. So lots of tourism, birders, families. So this has, again, elevated boardwalks. It has a tower also. It's got walking trails throughout the system. So a very successful project, award-winning in the state, but also it's brought a ton of people into Gainesville. This is right here in Pasco County. This is the 4G Wetlands. Again, another award-winning project right here in our area. This is a smaller, about 130 or so acres for this. This is something that Pasco did beautifully. They took a very problematic area and they made it into, again, an award-winning wetland that people can come to. Trails, boardwalks, walkways. This is Green Cove, Green Cay Wetlands. It's about 100 acres. This is another project that was done in conjunction with the Parks Department and the Utility Department. Again, you can see the types of events and people that come. They've got a gazebo there. They've got educational boards. They have folks coming to see the wildlife. Peaceful Waters Reserve. This is in the village of Wellington. This is an example of a very small wetland. It's only about 30 acres, but people flock to this. This is within a populated city, a very urban area. And not only are these fantastic for families to come to, but what these are our natural Florida filters. Our wetlands throughout the state are our filters. So we are bringing them back to help us. Project phasing, this is me, Jack, right? Okay. So this project has a lot of different phases and a lot of different moving parts, besides the crowning jewel that we're doing with the park element, where we've already done a feasibility study to say, hey, is what we're thinking feasible? That was proven and approved by the Water Management District. The two highlighted green projects are the projects that we are just finishing up right now. They're the expansion of the wetlands. That's a 30% design. The Water Management District asks that we do it this way. It's in peer review right now, so it'll be an independent review. And on the other side, we're doing the feasibility study for the indirect potable project, where we'll be injecting into the aquifer. We're buying our pilot system right now. Then after those projects are complete, we'll go in October. We're already funded for the next set of projects by the Water Management District. We'll do the final design for the expansion of the wetlands, and then we'll do the wetland construction project. Project funding phase. So we talked a little bit about the multiple places that we're seeking funds. Jack is looking for the FERDAP grant through the DEP. The 319 grant is a stormwater grant that we'll be looking at. We have already put in for a Florida legislative appropriation. That package is already in. There's TMDL grants, which is nutrient removal. And we are already approved for the cost sharing through the Water Management District. And the reason why that is important is because these projects are expensive. We're looking at probably about 8 million plus for the wetland project itself, but that's cut in half. So we're 4 to 5 million on our end, and then we're seeking about 2 million additional funds through grant programs to help us. So in the end, we're hoping that ours is a manageable cost.
Here comes the fun stuff.
Now the closer. What we're doing on the recreation side is a lot of the things that are above the grant become recreation entities. So through recreation, as Lynn mentioned, for the construction of the wetlands and all the different work that they are doing on the utility side, a lot of funding that she showed there coming from different various agencies through the utility side. On the recreation side, there are 3 main ones that we can apply for to try to get grants. And the one we're doing today is the Recreation Trails Program grant that we're applying for, a $400,000 grant that the city will match with impact fee funding to build the trail system, to build the boardwalk and all that you'll see on the next slide. The trail that we're currently building was funded half by a Florida legislative appropriation with city matching funds to get that part of it built. Other grants that are available are the FERDAP, which is Florida Recreational Development Assistance Program, and also the Land and Water Conservation Fund. And those will open up in different cycles throughout the year, and we will apply for those as they become available. I'm just getting forward one there. It doesn't like me. Should be one there.
I don't understand. Everybody likes Jack Holland.
Okay, there we go, finally. All right, this is a graphic that gives you an overview of what the park could look like in the future. The symbol of the state of Florida there in the middle will be a raised land area, which we'll have spoils, which will be the soil that is dug out through for these different ponds. And also that will be an area in the center of the state of the parcel that right now is shaped like the state of Florida, so that we can put an elevated tower on top of that. We give us a very good vantage point for the entire East Hillsborough County. But the yellow spot you see is where the current observation tower is going up. You can see the dotted trails in that upper left corner, which is the current trail system that's going in. Then each of the cells that Lynn discussed earlier will have walking trails around them and some boardwalks going through them as well. And finally, this is some of the signage that will be in the park, just to let people know what's going on in the park for various wildlife there, plant life, and other residents of the preserve that we will do as educational projects throughout the trail system. And so with that, we stand for any questions that you might have. Lynn can do the technical side, I can do the fun side, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that we can.
I think this is a terrific project. I'm really excited. And any questions or comments? Yeah. Two things. I do remember a few years ago when the phosphate mine north of town closed down, they were a substantial user of reclaimed water.
That's correct.
Is this going to give us a way to use the water that had been going up there?
Right. The city's always looking for a way to use their reuse water, and we use it on every one of our ball fields will be irrigated with reuse water in the next year or two. Probably 90% are right now. We have one more complex to add. We use it to do irrigation in a lot of the right-of-ways around town that the city maintains. So we're already using a lot, but there's a lot more volume there that we need to get rid of, to use. And CF Industries and then Mosaic, as they were later known, used to use a lot of the water. This would be one area that we can use that water to go in here to keep the wetlands moist when it's dry season. And also the indirect potable injection system that Lynn was talking about can also put that water back into the aquifer as it goes down through the filtration system of the soil. But that's definitely part of this project.
Okay, very good. In what sense are we independent water? Do we have our own wells? Is that
Yes, we
what
do.
you-
And I'll let
Yeah.
Lynn speak on that, but we have several wells around town and water storage facilities
Okay.
that we use now. And as
Okay.
Lynn did mention, we're in a very good position that we are very self-sustaining. We are not relying on Tampa Bay Water or the Polk Cooperative to get our water here in Plant City. We have our own. And so by doing this project and reusing our reuse water in good ways to recharge the aquifer, then that gives us credits with other water agencies. We may even be in a position to put water toward them rather than us taking it from them.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important, that independence.
Keeps us independent,
Hugely,
correct.
yeah,
Mhm, mhm.
very good. Other questions or
And I
comments?
just like to say
Um,
thank you for your hard work. I know you've been working on this for a long time,
Great, thank you.
and it's a good project that's coming to Plant City and to the area. So I just want to say thank you and looking forward to it.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you, Ms.
would-
Spivey. Appreciate it. Okay.
I'd like to just also add in that I think this is a great project. I like how it taps into tourism and giving us, kind of an alternative for why people, come to Plant City. It just looks beautiful even on the films. Just a financial question, because I can't ever avoid those. So I guess in a nutshell, Plant City's financial impact would be about $2 million of exposure after what you foresee in grants, and possibly that could even be reduced. But is that what you're looking at about now?
Yeah, the entire project is going to be in the $8 or $9 million range at this point, but half of that is already committed by the Southwest Florida Water Management District. They're covering half of it. So that drops it automatically down to 4.5. We're still looking for grants that would help us offset the cost of that, help leverage our money. So the 4.5 million remainder could be cut in half by these grants, bringing it down to a $2 to $3 million city investment in the future. So for a $8, $9 million project for the city to put $2 million in, it's a big win for the city to be able to do that.
And did I understand like when we would actually see this, and I'm actually on this side of town, is it 2024 or when would the tourist attraction or first opportunity, when do you foresee that? Is that 2024 or?
Right, we're looking at, it'll be at least a couple of years, maybe 3 years before this really gets fully into construction. So it'll take a while to get there. So 24 would be an optimistic number, I do believe. Lynn's nodding her head yes. So probably 25 would be closer when we would have a vast majority of the project completed.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah, the one trail section that will be open this coming May, which will be the 2.2 miles of trail in the northwest upland section of the park. And for the audience here, we do have some posters on the side of the room that you want to look at on the way out to show the graphics you saw earlier on the screen. A little bit easier to see on the poster boards.
Thank you, Bonnie. Any other questions, Bonnie, or comments?
No, that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Well, thank you. Again, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. Okay. That concludes that item. We'll move on to item 5 on the agenda, legislative public hearing, PCP/CPA 20-10, privately initiated map amendment. And Mr. Hudson, you're speaking.
I am Mark Hudson, Planning Commission staff. We're here to present you one plan amendment this morning. It's PCCPA 20-10. I can have the next slide. This shows you the location of the plan amendment on your vision map. As you can see, it's located in the northeast quadrant of the city in an area designated for future residential development. To be more specific, it's located south of Knights Griffin Road and east of North Wilder Road. Next slide, please. This shows you the plan amendment site a little bit closer up with an aerial. You can see it's surrounded by the dashed lavender line, and you can see to the west North Wilder Road. Next slide, please. By way of a little bit of background, this is a result of a voluntary annexation. It is over 10 acres, so it will require the review of the Department of Economic Opportunity, coming in at about 13.5 acres. The current land use is Hillsborough County agricultural estate, which allows 1 unit for every 2.5 acres. And the applicant is requested Plant City Residential 4, which allows 4 units an acre. I will note that that is the least dense plan category available in the palette of categories that are in Plant City Comprehensive Plan. Next slide, please. This shows you the future land use map as it stands today. You can see to the north, west, and south, there's very similar plan amendments for those properties, plan categories for those properties in those locations because they are still within Hillsborough County. But you can see to the east, there is residential 4 plan category on the lands that abut this property. And if you go a little bit further to the east, that is the edge of the new development known as Vieira. I got the next slide. And this shows you how the plan amendment would change, the land use would change if approved by the Plant City Commission later this calendar year. I could have the next slide. So what is the potential impacts? Right now, land could be developed for 12 units. With this new plan category, that potentially could be 122 units. I will say there's some wetlands on the site and obviously other engineering aspects that would have to occur, during the zoning and platting stage, that 122 units is probably not achievable. However, we did analyze it based on what we call maximum build out. Next slide, please. I have a couple photos just to give you general character of the area. This is, of course, an aerial photo from a different angle showing you some of the agricultural uses that are around there today and also some of the large lot residential development pattern. Next slide. This shows you Wilder Road looking north along the western boundary of the property. Next slide. And this shows you the southern boundary of the property looking along Lawrence Road. Next slide. Our staff did review this for consistency with the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. In your packets are the full listings for the goals, objectives, and policies that we cited that we felt this application was consistent with. And particularly, we looked at future land use element, and in particular of that, we looked at policies dealing with neighborhood conservation, enhancing the hometown charm, those rules and regulations dealing with annexations, growth management. Next slide, please. Also issues dealing with the provision of public facilities, agricultural compatibility, and intergovernmental coordination. Next slide. There is an issue concerning adequate school capacity. When this property is developed and they plat or develop a site plan, they will have to go through the concurrency process with the Hillsborough County School District to ensure that the students that are generated by this development do have appropriate school seats to accommodate those children, both at the high school level and the middle school level. Once they go through that zoning process, there will also be some required transportation analysis, and if improvements are required, they'll have to coordinate, the city will coordinate those with Hillsborough County. And we did talk to the Public Utilities Director, and there are no water or sewer lines up there currently, but once they are brought up there, there is capacity to serve those both with our permitted well capacity and also our sanitary sewer facility. Next slide. With that, our Planning Commission staff recommends that PCCPA 20-10 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan, and to forward this recommendation to the forward this recommendation to the Plant City Commission. I will say this plan amendment for those in the audience will also be heard by the Planning Commission in the evening of March 8th. They will receive a similar presentation. We will be asking for a similar recommendation. And with that, Chairman, I stand for any questions.
As I read your analysis, you sort of had to wrestle with this one. I mean, it wasn't a straightforward process. I mean, you had to analyze it and agree that it made sense. Is that kind of a correct interpretation?
Well, that is correct. I mean, the densities that were projected in the Northeast Master Plan are about 2.5 units an acre.
Yeah.
And the applicant is asking for 4. And the reason the applicant is asking for 4 is that's the least dense density that we have. However, we feel that with the wetlands that are on site and with the remaining uplands, that ultimately the development that will occur there will be very similar to what was envisioned in the Northeast Master Plan.
Yeah, and it'll be consistent with the other properties that are being developed to the
Correct.
east.
I mean,
Adjoining properties.
Exactly. And generally speaking, this area is envisioned, and when I said generally, I'm talking about the whole northeast
Right.
quadrant. This particular area is recognized for future residential development.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any questions for Mr. Hudson? Thank you, sir. Is the applicant present?
Good morning.
Hi.
My name is Diane Chadwick, and I'm a planner with Stantec. I'm here today with Bart Allen, who is the attorney for, he's in the very back corner there. He is the attorney for Dan Escherline, the owner of this property. As you can see on our slide, you can see his proximity to Knights Griffin and Wilder, which Mark has already expressed to you. And as he has told you, we did file an annexation application, so that's in process. And the city has a new policy, I understand, that we are being asked to provide a plan development plan rezoning that will all dovetail at the end. We will file that application probably within the next 2 weeks, maybe even next week. So that is in process. Next slide. This is a future land use map, and it's very similar to what Mark is showing you, is that we would be a continuation of the transition of the R4 over, and Mark is absolutely correct. Had you had a lower designation for density, we would have asked for it, because the owner doesn't actually have any immediate development plans at all. So, like I said, with the PD plan, we'll be filing, you'll see that. It's going to be pretty low density as we're planning for right now. But you can see that concentration of the R4 heading east to the Varela project and the property right next to us that we're adjacent to. So next slide. We did overlay this with the wetland jurisdiction line. That is an EPC line from Hillsborough County. They're the ones that set that line. So you can see 19 acres of the 30 acres are in wetland. So it only leaves 11 acres to actually be developed, which, as Mark said correctly, the chances of ever achieving the full build out is almost impossible, especially when you use the guidelines of the R4 designation. It would be extremely difficult to reach any kind of full build out on this site. And again, the owner doesn't have an immediate plan for any type of development here. He just wanted to go ahead and move forward with an annexation and a comp plan amendment. But we will be filing that PD plan, so you'll see what it is we're looking for. We're in agreement that this is consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and the surrounding area is a natural transition over from the Varela project headed toward Wilder Road, and to our southwest is the North Park Isles project. You're seeing a lot of development in this area, and so we're consistent with the comp plan, and I believe we're also consistent with the city's Northeast Master Plan. At this point, I'll just leave it. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Board members, do you have any questions for Ms. Chadwick? Bonnie, are you on the line? Do you have any questions?
Sorry, I had to unmute. No questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Chadwick. Appreciate it. This is the opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this proposal? I'll ask again. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this proposal? Okay, we'll close public comment then. Is there anything further you wish to add, Mr. Hudson? Yeah.
No, I'm just standing for any questions.
Okay. Thank you. All right. What's the pleasure of the board? Yeah. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Driggers, moving for a favorable outcome on this. Is there a second?
I'll
Yeah.
second it.
We have a second from Mr. Rodwell. Okay. Any discussion of the motion? Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Yeah.
Chair Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, does that imply that Mr. Burris never came into the meeting?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. Okay. Next item of business is our quasi judicial public hearings, and they require a swearing in. So anyone who's going to be speaking on any of the remaining, I guess it's 5 items, would you please stand up, raise your right hand, and the clerk will administer the oath. Yeah.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Next, first item of business is PB 2020-30, Summer Creek Townhouses special approval. Welcome back.
Good morning. My name is Ross Einstetter. I am the planner with Plant City, and I have been sworn in. Oh, you can, so many. Okay. I don't.
Yeah.
But this is way far. Hold on.
We usually get addresses, so we'll call you a city hall address.
Yes.
You probably live and work here, right?
Yeah, this week. Okay. So the project before you today is PB 2020-30 for the Summer Creek Townhome Special Approval. The request is for special approval to allow townhomes in a C1A zoned property. The location of the property is on the north side of State Road 574 between North Turkey Creek Road and North Lake Boulevard. The property is approximately 20 acres with the feature land use of residential 12 and the zoning is C1A. Section 102.353.6 states that the townhomes are an allowable use within the C1A zoning district with special approval. Staff has reviewed the special approval request and found that the applicant's application and supporting documentation for townhomes complies with all requirements enumerated under Article 2, Division 4, the uses requiring special approval for the City of Plant City Code of Ordinances. Therefore, staff recommends that the planning board find the special approval request consistent with Article 2, Division 4, and for it to be approved. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions for staff? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is the applicant present?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I'm here for the next one too.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask for public comment at this point. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment on this item? That's 2020-30 Summer Creek Townhouses special approval. Anyone in the audience? Would you, please step forward. You need to give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
My name is Alice Griffin, and my address is 3900 State Road 574. And my property is the property line, so it begins right there. My concern is that is there potentially some, I know that they have retention ponds, and I know that we also have that canal running through there. And right recently, there was a school project that was approved on the other side of that canal. So it's kind of like there's going to be an awful lot of drainage going into this one area. If we have provisions for that, and I do know that there are, in the past, there has been provisions, but I just want to make sure before we get bombarded from that area with all the water flowing into between the school project there and these developments, because I have property there too. Maybe I'll be standing here asking you for approval real soon. So, you know, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page before we get too far into it. That's my concern, because like I said, you know, I know that they're looking at widening some of those areas out there for the road. So there are some things that we need to look at prior to approval. And the other thing I want to know, will there be another hearing prior to the approval?
Okay,
Okay,
thank
thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on this from the public? You want to step up? Yeah, do you want to comment on these or should we?
So for the special approval, there won't be another hearing, but as the project progresses through the stages, there will be more hearings. Like the next project is for the preliminary plat and a special waiver request. So there won't be one on special approval, but there'll be time to do all that through the next couple stages.
So the water issues will have to be addressed at the next stage.
Yes,
Okay. And of course, this was going to go to the commission, city commission for their approval before
the
it goes.
special approval doesn't.
Does not. Oh, it stops with us?
Right, that's just telling they can go to the next stage, but the next couple stages will have to go to city commission for approval.
Okay, the next stage. Okay. And again, let me ask, is the applicant present? I'm hearing no one identifies themselves. All right. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board? I'm a little uncomfortable with the applicant not being here, but I'm not sure it really makes a major difference. What are you thinking?
It'd been nice to hear from him.
Is it just in the nice category or is it something we really want to have happen before we approve this? Yeah. Any feelings, any thoughts? Yeah.
This is my first special approval. Again, it would have been nice just to hear what exactly they were doing and the planning.
Okay. I would agree. Well, I could turn this around. Is anyone willing to make a motion to approve this? Yeah, and then second it?
Can we move it to the next meeting?
Well, it'll have to move because if there's no motion, it'll be,
Automatically do it.
it won't advance on this agenda. Yeah.
I'd recommend that you have a motion to continue the hearing to
Okay,
not close the hearing, but open it up so that way you can have more testimony from the
I'll do that then.
developer
Okay,
and to continue until the next meeting.
okay.
If we know the date of the meeting.
Well, so if the first one doesn't go, then the second one probably doesn't, because that's the preliminary plat, so we'll have to do that for the second one also.
yes, sir.
If you want to, I mean, if you want to hear the presentation, we can go through it. But
There's a notice public hearing for the preliminary plat, right?
yes, it's just right after
You
this.
probably would need to get input from the public and then continue.
Okay,
Is what I would recommend on both. But first, let's address the special approval and continue that. Do you know the date of the next planning board meeting?
March 24th.
24th? Okay.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to continue PB 2020-30 to the March 24th meeting.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the motion? Madam Clerk, would you
I
call the roll?
apologize. I have Board Member Jones and seconded by,
Yeah,
Driggers?
Mr. Driggers.
thank you. And it's a motion to continue to the March 24th meeting.
That is
Correct.
correct. That's going to affect an agenda item later on, the next agenda item as well.
And I will do a roll call.
So you ready to call the roll?
Yes, sir. Board Member Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0. Is there any action required for the next agenda item, which is the
The
preliminary?
preliminary plat, since it's a public hearing, I would ask anybody in the public who wishes to speak on it. If there's nobody, then I would go ahead and continue the next meeting.
Does that need a motion then,
It will after the public hearing.
after the public comment?
After, well,
Yeah,
right, it's a
yeah.
public hearing, so.
Yes, yeah, that's true, that's true, okay. Okay, well, then we close that item, we'll advance to item PB 2020-31, still Summer Creek Townhouses, this is the preliminary plat. I assume, again, we suggested to staff that no further presentation was necessary at this time. But again, I'll offer the applicant the chance to speak, although we know they're not present for the first item, but, all right. Public, is there any public comment on this preliminary plat? Now, again, understanding this is going to come back at a subsequent meeting. Yeah. Any public comment at this time? Okay, thank you. That closes the public comment. And we need a motion now to continue this item to the October 24th.
I'll make another motion
meeting.
to continue PB 2020-23 to the March 24th meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Jones. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Driggers to continue the second item, which is 2020-31 to the March 24th meeting. Any discussion of the motion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Board Member Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, thank you. Next item, item D on the agenda, PB 2020-23, Berea South preliminary plat.
Good morning, board members. Robin Baker, Senior Planner with Planning and Zoning, and I have been sworn in. The next case is for the Berea South preliminary plat, case number PB 2020-23. The site is located at the south side of Midway Road, west of Charlie Taylor Road, and the request is for a preliminary plat to establish a 746-unit subdivision with a mix of 517 single-family units, 116 paired villa units, and 113 townhome units. The zoning on the property currently is the Berea Planned Development District. Future land use is mixed-use residential commercial in certain portions, as well as residential for and natural preservation. The proposed density on the site at 459.24 acres, the proposed 764-unit development would have a density of 1.66 units per acre. The proposed lot size within the preliminary plat for the smallest proposed townhome lot is 20 feet by 120 feet, 35 by 120 for the paired villas, and 40 by 120 for the single-family detached lots. There are some variations to those depending on the site, the layout of the lot. Some of them get a little bit of a pie shape and they change a little bit, but those are the smallest approved lots. This is an overall view of the plat. This is a fairly large piece of property, so it's not clear to understand, but you'll see the large patterned areas. Those are wetlands. And then you'll see the lots that are dispersed throughout. The townhomes are shown at the top portion there to the left, with the villas mixed in with the rest of the lots. They are proposing that this site would be developed in phases, and this is how they showed the phase breakdown. And just as a reminder, a preliminary plat is a draft proposal by a property owner and/or developer, which is reviewed by staff and the planning board. And the purpose of that preliminary plat is for the city to provide the developer direction in the early stages of the development prior to a lot of resources being expended on the project. So what we're approving here today is more of a concept. They will have to go through construction plan review, and then at the final plat is where we are looking for those exact items. Staff has reviewed the preliminary plat for the Berea South subdivision for consistency with the technical requirements of Chapter 94, which are the subdivision regulations, Chapter 102, the zoning ordinance, and the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. And staff recommends the planning board find the preliminary plat for Berea South consistent with those technical requirements and recommends approval of the preliminary plat. And I'm here if you have any questions.
I have a question, but let me see. Does anyone else have questions?
I have a question. I'm not familiar. What's a paired villa? Can you describe what that is?
I'll let the applicant explain exactly what their version of a paired villa is, but it's essentially like a duplex. But they can tell you a little bit more about their product and what's planned to go here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, the question I had was, there was a limit of 30% of the lots would be 40 feet or less. I didn't see that slide that shows percentage breakout in this report, the one you just showed. But when I looked at it on the paper report, if you added the various components, the duplex and the townhouses, those lot widths were less than 40. And if you added all of them together, it was greater than 30%, you know.
Well, the way that the PD is worded is or the code is worded, that those limits, those 30% limits are for single-family detached housing, which means single-family homes. So we don't include townhomes or paired villas in that calculation. Now, depending on how the condition was written for the PD as to what we measure it by, because they have been different, whether it's the total built units, if it includes those multifamily units or not, then that percentage can change. But based on that information that I provided in the staff report, only 98 of the lots proposed for this particular half of the development are 40-foot wide. The rest are 50 and above, or the townhome and villa units. So even if you're just looking at the single family detached numbers, they are far below the 30% for the 40-foot lots, but this is only half the project. Okay, this is just everything south of Midway. So they still have the northern half, excuse me, the northern half of the project that goes all the way to Knights Griffin, where you'll probably see a little bit more intense development because that's where the majority of the village commercial uses are going to be. So.
Okay. Well, I'm going to say this anyway. Yeah. And I don't, not necessarily sure it applies to this project, but I know the effort that went into this 30% limit. And it seems as if we're giving developers a real easy way to subvert that 30% by calling them duplexes or calling them townhouses. And they could fill up a property with those and never have hit the 30%. Am I reading this scenario? I'm not saying this person's doing it, what their intentions are, anything like that. But haven't we created a backdoor here, which looks like this one's going through?
Not necessarily, but
Okay.
I hear you. I understand what you're saying. But this particular project was proposed as a mixed-use project. And if you remember, originally this was a T&D project.
Correct.
Which requires that mix of uses. Okay?
Right.
The other half of that I would say is this particular project was approved prior to the adoption of the new code. Now,
Correct.
they did a lot to comply with that new code.
Correct.
But they weren't required to only have that 30% less than 60. Because obviously they have several 50-foot wide lots. The particular regulations on this one just apply to the 40s. But with the underlying future land use being that mixed use residential commercial in some areas, we want to see that variety of housing types for people to choose from. So you're not going to have every project that's going to be allowed to do that mix of uses. You know, if we start looking at PDs in other areas that are not that mixed use underlying, then it's two totally different products.
Okay.
And not every developer is going to want to do townhomes to get away from the single family. It depends on what the market demands for that developer. But I don't particularly see it as a backdoor for them, because it's the single family homes and those small lots that we want.
Because they'd have to apply for a mixed use application in the first place in order to be able to use that back door. Is that essentially what you're
Well,
saying?
it has to be a PD.
Yeah.
For them to be limited on the lots. But the concern of the city commission was about single family detached homes on really small lots with very little separation. Whereas with villas and townhomes, you're talking about attached housing. So you'll have 8 units together. That's the max they can have in one building. So that's not always what people want, you know? So you're gonna have that mix of both, and that's why it's considered more of a multifamily or single family attached use, not a single family detached use. Does that make sense? So I don't think you're going to see a lot of people using that as a way to skirt around the other. It just depends on the project itself.
I'm a little nervous. Okay. Any other questions or for staff?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Would the applicant like to speak on the proposal? Thank you. If you'd give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Planning Commission. Brian Mahalik with DR Horton, 12602 Telecom Drive, Tampa, Florida, and I have been sworn. So first to answer the question regarding the paired villas, it's a 30-foot wide product, two dwellings attached on a 0 lot line. So total of a 70-foot lot, 2 connected 30 unit residents, if that makes sense.
That's a concept you've used in other projects.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other things just to address the 40-foot and the restriction. During the PD process, we went through extensive conversations with staff, planning commission, and the city commission regarding how to calculate that 40% and where we got to that number. And just to clarify that the denominator in that calculation does not include the paired villas and the townhomes.
Right.
So the 30% isn't of the total 746. It needs to be that we're proposing on this preliminary plat. The 30% is of 579 single-family detached lots. In this preliminary plat, we have 98 40-foot lots. So that's a total of 19% within this south portion.
Yes.
So for the north portion, current plans right now as well are not to get close, or not to even come close to that 30%, but just like we have on this plat. But so we're at the 19 versus the 30, but it was always contemplated to have the paired villas, the mixed use townhomes and so on.
Is that your comments?
Yes, sir. Well, any other questions for me?
I think one other stipulation that came up in the discussion of the 40-foot lots was that they wouldn't be located prominently, I guess is the nicest way to say it, where that's what you saw when you entered the subdivision. Was that taken into account?
It was careful designing. They're mixed, interspersed throughout the whole southern portion. They're not all in one particular section, but also that we've complied with any additional buffering that we agreed to in the zoning and so on.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Any questions for the applicant?
All right. Thank you very much.
Mr. Alec, thank you, sir. Thank you. This opens the opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Anyone in the audience? Yes, sir. Come forward. Give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
My name is Byron Nelson. I live at 3235 East Williams Road. My property is immediately adjacent to the Berea project. I just wanted to comment based on something Mr. Wood said. All the people around there that I know are generally not in favor of this project, but we realize it's coming. But I just wanted to reiterate that we would like for the commission to make sure you have something in there so they can't find a back door or whatever to increase the density in there above what was planned. So anything you can do to make sure that you assure that there's not some way that ends up being more than the review plan, we sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Other public comment? I'll ask one more time. Is there any other public comment on PB 2023 Berea South preliminary plat? Okay, we'll close the public comment. Thank you. Anything additional, staff, you want to add at this point? Okay. Thank you. We'll, board, what's your thoughts? Any comments, questions, concerns? Yeah. Good. You good? What's the pleasure of the board? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve PB 2020-23, finding it consistent with the Imagine 2040 of the Plant City Comprehensive Plan.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion by Mr. Jones and a second by Bonnie Carr. Is there any discussion of the motion? Madam Clerk, before you call, there were no public comments on the phone on this, correct? Yeah.
There was a citizen that wanted to speak, Miss Nancy Martin. She would have been on the line. She is not on the line. I don't
Okay,
know if she's
I
present.
wanted to be sure.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you call for the vote, Madam Clerk?
Yes. Board Member Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next agenda item, PB 2021-08, City Furniture PD rezone. Yeah.
Good morning again. Robin Baker, Senior Planner with Planning and Zoning Department, and I have been sworn in. Our next application is the City Furniture Plan Development District rezoning. The site is located on the south side of I-4 at the southeast corner of South Frontage Road and Sun Keene Road. It's approximately 111.88 acres, has a future land use of mixed-use residential commercial, residential 4, and industrial. And a good majority of the site is located within the I-4 Tech Corridor overlay. The zoning on the property is a mix of 2 PDs, McMullen Corporate Park PD and Sun Landings PD, and R1A. Currently approved on the site today for the Sun Landings PD that is shown in that light red color there. It's approved for 20 single-family units, 200 multifamily units, 105,000 square feet of retail, 45,000 square feet of office. And the McMullen Corporate Park PD, which is shown in blue, is approved for 1,095,543 square feet of industrial, bioscience, or scientific facilities and support uses. And then the small R1A portion there on the south would only be able to develop with uses allowed under the R1A district, and the R1A requires 75-foot wide lots. The applicant proposes the rezoning of the subject parcels from the 2 PDs and R1A to a plan development, which we will name the City Furniture Plan Development District. The applicant's request is to permit 1,263,250 square foot production distribution warehouse for city furniture, including a 176,761 square foot furniture showroom for retail sales, and 57,419 square feet of support office and cafe uses. This is a view of what the site plan looks like. There are specific approvals being requested as part of this rezoning, which is something that's allowed to them under the new PD code revisions that just were approved in January. The first one is a reduction in the required number of parking spaces required by section 102.14.13 through 102.14.23. The elimination of the tree requirement for parking islands in the area labeled South Employee Parking, and the allowance of truck parking and loading in a portion of the front of the building facing South Frontage Road. So I've circled that employee parking lot on the south side of the property there. That's the area that they've asked to not have to put trees. They will put sod on the parking islands, but just not actual trees, stating that it's a safety hazard for the semi trucks that will be going back and forth. And then also I've circled the front of the building there where they plan to do potential loading and unloading in the front as well. So to help mitigate the parking in the front and rear of the building, per those special approvals, the applicant is proposing an enhanced buffer to include an 8-foot wall or fence. A parking study was submitted to explain the specific approval for reduced parking, as the proposed use utilizes shift work, and the study argues that the standard 0.6 spaces per 1,000 square feet would cause more parking lot surface than needed. I believe the exact numbers proposed were a reduction of the spaces from 1,124 spaces down to 726 spaces. And the study did state that this same building has been built in other jurisdictions, and those parking spaces have worked for those buildings as well. The developer will be responsible for extending water and sanitary sewer to all development, and the cost of extending such facilities will be the responsibility of the developer. The city has the capacity to serve the proposed development. The site was inspected by the Environmental Protection Commission, and it was determined that there are wetlands on site. EPC did not object to the rezoning, but requested that certain conditions be added to basically state that even if the plan development is approved, that doesn't improve any impacts to the wetlands. But as you can see in the graphic I've provided there with the wetlands shown in blue, they're currently not showing any impacts to the wetland. That's kind of the purpose for some of these special approvals that they've asked for, is they've shifted that building all the way over to keep it out of that wetland and not have to make any major impacts. Pursuant to the requirements of the code, a transportation analysis was conducted And that analysis said that at the frontage road access, which is the one circled in red there, would require a 235-foot eastbound right turn lane only. There were no improvements required at that second access. Here are the renderings that were submitted by the applicant of what the building will look like.
They show trees.
Yes. Yes, and that's the front parking and the side parking.
okay.
It's just that parking lot in the back that they're not going to do the landscape.
I didn't catch that either. So the back will have the tree, or the front will have the trees, the back won't.
Yes.
Okay.
Anything that's mostly seen by the patrons will have the landscaping. It's just the employee parking lot in the back that won't. This is a view of the areas that are loading and unloading. And staff recommends the rezoning request from PD and R1A to City Furniture Plan Development District be found consistent with Article 4, Division 8 of Chapter 102 of the Plant City Code of Ordinances and the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan, and for it to be forwarded to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval. That concludes my presentation. I'm here if you have any questions.
Did you provide us an aerial of photo?
Let's go back to the
Okay.
first slide.
I've seen representations, but I wanted an actual aerial. So
That's
that
the only one
darker,
that I have.
that darker green area to the bottom right, that's the wetlands that there was a concern.
Yes, sir. So you can see how a part of that goes up onto the
Okay.
property. It's a fairly large wetland system.
Yeah, okay, so I make sure I understood, and I wanted to see it.
I had a question on the access. Is it only accessible from south frontage, or it sounds like maybe there's another entrance exit? Where would that be?
The only entrance that's shown on Sun Keen Road is an emergency access only. Sun Keen is a Hillsborough County maintained road, and there's a sign on that road you enter from south frontage that says no through trucks. I'll let the applicant speak to why, there's no access on Sun Keen, but I would assume that's part of the reason. But yes, all of the entrances to the project will be located along South Frontage Road.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff?
Truck parking is going to be between I-4 and 6.
Yes, sir, but only on a portion of the building. So if you can see there where the parking lots start, I know it's kind of hard to see. Let me get to the bigger graphic. They're showing kind of where the parking lot starts there, and it seems that they may have better graphics to show exactly where that truck parking will stop. But I'm sure the entrance to the showroom, there's not going to be any truck parking there, obviously, because you're going to have patrons coming and going. But yes.
And there was going to be some kind of buffering or something between I-4 and.
Yes, they are required to provide a certain amount of landscaping along south frontage, just per the code, but they are providing an enhanced buffer with an 8-foot wall or fence to help mitigate, the activity in that area. But the landscaping will be on the outside of the fence. So what you see from frontage will be, you'll see the wall, but you'll see the landscaping in front.
I guess I'm trying to, looking at the diagram, trying to figure out how the trucks will get to there, to park, without driving through the car parking lot. And using the entrances that they've located.
Right.
It looks like it's going to be complicated.
Well, I'll let the applicant answer that question as to the flow and how things will happen on site.
Good question, no. Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Baker.
Thank you.
Is the applicant present? Give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
Good morning. We are excited to be here. Elise Batzel, Stearns Weaver Miller, 401 East Jackson Street in Tampa. Here on behalf of City Furniture, I have been sworn. We have our whole team this morning, and we have our transportation engineers, our civil engineers, as well as the founder of City Furniture, who would like to say a couple of words to you just about the company and why Plant City. and we'll address all of those questions. I'm going to go through my presentation first and allow Mr. Koenig to address the board, and then I'll go back and we'll address those specific questions that were raised. Some of our presentation may also address it. So Robin has already indicated where this excuse me, property is located, so I won't go over that again. This shows the current future land use map. I'm a visual person as well, Board Member Wood, and so this shows the areas that are R4, the areas that are currently MURC, as well as the area that is natural preservation. That, of course, is the area that the existing wetland, where the existing wetland exists. As Robin mentioned, this is in the Interstate 4 tech overlay. The majority of the property is in that overlay. So the area, the small strip on the southern boundary, that will be used for passive uses like stormwater and won't have active uses located on that area. So the current zoning on the property is, there are a lot of entitlements on this property at the moment. 1,095 square feet of office, research, manufacturing, and distribution, 150,000 square feet of retail office, and then of course the 220 residential units. So the impact of what we're proposing from a density and intensity perspective is really only a minor increase. You can see here, we are combining all of those PDs into one overall comprehensive PD. So this concept rendering can show you the site a little bit better. I always find color is a little more explanatory. You can see the areas in red. That's the actual warehouse and distribution facility building. The area in dark green, of course, is the existing wetland. And the area to the north in the light green is potential future, maybe a future phase 2. And of course, we'd have to come in and amend the PD if we wanted to do anything on that parcel in the future. You can see the stormwater retention in that passive area to the south, and it doesn't show very well, but if you look around the northern boundary where the building is, the eastern boundary, the western boundary and the southern boundary, there's a dark green line. Those are all the areas where we have this enhanced buffer. We are going to show you a rendering of what that looks like just so that you can see it live and in person. We are proposing on this site 1,029,000 square feet of this really exciting warehouse and distribution facility. It will have 57,000 plus square feet of office, and it will include a retail showroom and cafe so that people can actually come to the store, not only buy what they want, but have a true showroom, sit, touch, and feel furniture. I'm going to turn it over to Sheila Tyree with Height and Associates at the moment. She's going to go through some of the planning concepts as well as the specific approvals, and then we'll introduce Mr. Koenig to you. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd also give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Sheila Tyree. I'm with Height Design. We're at 5904A Hampton Oaks Parkway in Tampa, Florida. I'll take this off.
Yeah, I was having a little trouble hearing you.
Do you want me to repeat
I appreciate
that,
it.
or is that okay?
I appreciate that.
All right. So there's a little bit bigger version of the concept plan, and I'm happy to bring it closer if anybody needs it. I'll stay 6 feet away though. We are requesting 3 specific approvals. The plan development, as Robin mentioned, is in the I-4 overlay district, and this is regulated by Division 21 in your land development regulations. And we are meeting all of those requirements except for these 3 specific approvals that we are asking for. Robin mentioned the parking reduction, and we did the parking study and studied the other buildings. The other one is the loading docks in front of the buildings. They're prohibited by our code, so we're asking, since we are avoiding the wetland, we needed to put some loading docks at the front. And so we are offering an enhanced buffer to help mitigate that use. And then the other specific approval that we're asking is to reduce the landscaping in the south employee parking, so there will be trucks going through that area. You see here, the trucks are going to be entering there and then coming around. So some of them will turn, and come right in here and go to loading, but some of them might need to come through here and come down to this loading
Okay, I can see that. Thank you.
area.
And where would the trucks in the front go? How would they travel? You said they would be parking on the,
They're gonna come around.
they have to circle the building.
They're gonna be circling.
They wouldn't turn right
Yeah.
after coming in.
They're gonna come.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Driggers?
And then they'll exit the same way.
Yeah.
Is that all running or is that all 17?
Off the front.
That's the only entrance is, thank you, sir. The only entrance is off of
There's
front.
2 entrances on south frontage, yes.
Yeah.
Sun King is only for emergency if a fire truck needs to get in from that side.
Yeah. How is that access controlled? Is there
It's called a knock box.
okay,
That's
so there's,
That's about the most technical that I can explain that.
yes, sir. I'm going to have public comment in a little bit, so if you'd stand by.
And Robin showed you a few renderings of the building. And so this would be the showroom area. A little more landscaping beautification, the nice showroom windows. And this area would be the warehouse and loading docks. The developer is planning to have the building LEED certified. So there's a lot of steps that they're going through to get that certification. They don't know what level they're going to attain yet, but they are applying for LEED certification. And then this is the enhanced buffer that we were talking about along South Frontage Road. So we would have an 8-foot fence and additional trees and landscaping all along there to help mitigate that use along the front. And that's kind of the view from looking across South Frontage Road, and you see the fence and the trees and then the building behind. And then this is kind of like if you're driving along South Frontage Road, this would be the view there.
Okay.
And this is in the Plant City Comprehensive Plan. It's land use objective 8.3. It describes the Interstate 4 technical corridor overlay. We're one of the target industries that objective is targeting. And we also support land use policy 8.3.1, 8.3.3. It's a master planned industrial park. And we're less than a mile from the nearby interchange with I-4 and Park Road. And that interchange is considered a commercial activity center in your vision plan, your Plant City vision plan. And that designation is assigned to only 2 of the 5 interchanges that the city has along I-4. And we obviously, as we've discussed, we have access to South Frontage Road and we're less than a mile from that interchange. And I'm gonna let Elise come back up and.
Sure. Keith Koenig, who is the CEO and founder of City Furniture, just wants to address you if that's acceptable.
Yes.
Thank you.
Has he been sworn in? Well, we'll find out. Yeah. Welcome. Please state for the record your name, address, and that you've been sworn in.
Good morning, I'm Keith Koenig. I'm CEO and owner of City Furniture. My address is 6000 Cypress Road in Plantation, Florida, which is a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. Our business is based in Tamarack, which is also a suburb of Fort Lauderdale. We've actually got a very similar project that we built there almost 20 years ago. And
Have you been sworn in?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I have been sworn in.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so I'm really excited to be with you and talk about this project because it's a real big deal for us and we think it's going to be really impactful. But I first want to start with a couple of kudos for Plant City. First of all, your staff has been exceedingly professional. We don't always see that, but we're really excited to see that. Secondly, the hospitality of everybody at Plant City has been nothing short of amazing. All the way to April, the manager of the Hampton Inn last night, who sent us a little package and a handwritten note. We are looking forward to City Furniture coming to Plant City. So really pleasant. And that's the kind of people we are. So the project's going to be really exciting. It's big, it's a big distribution center. And I believe it's going to be recognized by everybody that travels from Orlando to Tampa, which is pretty much everybody in this part of the world. Traffic there is obviously a big part of the reason why we want to locate there. It gives us distribution capabilities to reach across all of Orlando. We've opened up big stores in Orlando. If you get a chance to go by our newest one at the Mall of Millennia, it's a 120,000 square foot showroom, 2 stories, right across from the Mall of Millennia, and it has become the #1 furniture store in the whole central area, in the whole Central Florida area. This showroom in Plant City will be the biggest showroom in the state of Florida. It'll be the biggest furniture store in the state of Florida. It'll be 160,000 square feet plus another 20,000 square foot clearance center for scratch and dent closeout items. The warehouse will be over 1 million square feet, and we'll be able to really cover and support all of our growth across the state of Florida. Now, a little history on us. There couldn't be any more humble beginnings. We started in 1971. My late brother, Kevin, who passed away in 2001, started a little waterbed store with a few $1,000s he saved up working his way through college. Working his way as a bellman. Our family was lower middle class. Mom worked at the department store. Dad worked for National Car Rental in an office in Lauderdale by the Sea. They were good people, and they said, "You want something? Go work for it." All 3 of their kids had got a master's degree and beyond. My sister ended up being a judge. And Kevin and I formed this partnership after he opened his little waterbed store, and I got out of the University of Florida in 1975. We grew the business, and in the early 90s, the waterbed business started to decay, but we reinvented our business to City Furniture. Maybe a little more than you want to know, but if we're coming to town, we want to give you the whole story. So in 1994, we started City Furniture, and it was a very challenging time because we had to reinvent our business. So one of the messages I want to get across to you is we can take a punch. We know how to reinvent our business. We're here for the long haul. I'm the owner of the business, but my son-in-law heads up real estate after a successful banking career. His wife, my daughter, started and ran our design business. This is a family business. My son started unloading trucks after he got a master's degree in business administration. He's now president of the company. And he's not president because he's my son. He's president because he works harder and smarter and runs the business really well. So I'm here to say we're in an expansion phase because we built a young team that has a lot of ambition. We have a beautiful store. We have a global supply chain, a product that you will be proud of. And I would encourage everybody to go to the Mall of Millennia and see our store there. And you'll see right next door is a Rooms to Go store that's beautiful. And we're doing twice the business they are because we have a really good product and so this is going to be a great product, a great project for us. We're going to build it to LEED certification standards. We have more LEED certified buildings than any other furniture company in the country. We have a green promise to be carbon neutral by 2040. We run all of our trucks on compressed natural gas. We recycle 99.9% of all of our waste. And we have a commitment to be becoming carbon neutral, so we are starting on the path to solar energy. But on top of that, we're a good community citizen. We've won Philanthropic Community of the Company of the Year in Miami-Dade and Broward County. The only company who has won it at the same time. All right? Sorry about that. That's a meeting I'm supposed to be in Fort Lauderdale. Sorry. So, so we have a commitment called a 5% giving pledge. For years, we have been philanthropic in our communities, and we made it clear, and actually my son took the lead on this, to say 5% of our profits are going to go back to the communities that we are involved in. So my message to you is we're going to create a good, clean, green property. We have a great team of associates that we're going to create jobs here in Plant City and the surrounding areas. And we will do it by giving back into the community we have. It'll be remarkably successful. When you see this building built, it'll become iconic. People driving by will know that property. And I believe we will add value to everybody around because we run the business the right way. It's a family business. It's not going anywhere. My son and my son-in-law are going to take it over when I get run over by a bus or turn into dust. But that's who we we are, and that's what we're about. And we're excited about the opportunity to come here, and we appreciate the great staff work that has been done and our team that is making this happen. We're going to move pretty quickly, as a matter of fact. We hope to be open by the middle of next year. Any questions for me?
I have a comment. I won't let it affect my business decision, but 2 of my boys grew up on your waterbeds, so.
I still have, my wife and I still sleep on water.
And they never managed to puncture holes in them, and even though they were teenage boys, so.
I have a question.
Bonnie, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, first of all, I really like hearing, just the character of your business. I was just curious, the residential piece that's in your plan, what was your thinking with that, including a residential development within your commercial plan?
This is Elise Batzel, again, for the record. That is actually the existing development. We're changing that. There isn't a residential component to what is planned. Those are the existing PD entitlements on the property as of today. We, of course, are changing it into this distribution and showroom facility.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sorry for the confusion.
Thank you. Any questions or good comments to the?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here very much. Yeah, that personalizes it in a special way. Yeah. Any further comments from the applicant? Yeah.
No, we'll reserve any comments for rebuttal. I do understand there's some neighbors with questions, so our team's prepared to answer those and any other questions that may come up.
Great. No further questions for the applicant? Okay. All right, we'll call for public comment. Yes, sir. Might be others I indicated. So if you come forward, give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David Knoll. My address is 3080 Sun King Road, and I have been sworn in.
Thank you, Mr.
So I am a local resident. I do live on Sun King Road. To qualify who I represent here this morning, loosely and formally, I represent several other neighbors, but I'll speak specifically to my own personal views on this plan development.
Can I ask you, did this handout come from you?
It did, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll reference that in just a moment.
Thank you.
I am not here to be against the plan development, even the change. So the current plan PD has some pluses and minuses to it from the perspective of a resident on Sun King Road, and this new development has some pluses and minuses also. So I'm not against that change of the plan development, and I'm happy to hear some of the comments of the owner of the business. I've worked over the 10 days since we've gotten the notice on Sun King Road with Robin Baker, the senior planner, just trying to educate myself on the process and what's going on. She supplied me with 10+ documents that I have weeded through over the last few days and sought to understand what the intent of both the applicant and the city planners are. It's in some ways overwhelming. For this morning's forum, my understanding is I just need to make some relatively general comments about how the residents feel about this proposed change. And again, I personally am not against it, but I definitely want the board and the applicant and the planning department know that I will be extremely involved in this process. Looking forward to it. It's a way for me to influence how the quality of my life, and my son and daughter-in-law, 2 grandsons, live in the property directly beside me. So I have a very vested interest in this, plan on being very involved. With that said, I wanted to use this specific example of how a resident views some of the planned impacts to our lives. And so with your permission, can we just go through this?
Yes, sir. You have a limited amount of time. I mean, like down to seconds.
18 seconds.
Would you like an additional minute?
If that would be allowed.
Yes, sir. I'll allow additional minute.
Thank you.
Is that okay?
So as you can see on this table, this is copied right out of and it references it below the 21024 city furniture transportation analysis signed final on that particular date. So that's what we're referencing here. And I'll state that the residents that after review of this document and in interpreting the data as best we can, here are some conclusions that we came with. We think that a left turn lane from westbound south frontage traffic is warranted. So currently the applicant and the planning department is proposing a relatively small right turn lane in the eastbound. And so we have questions about the actual traffic study itself. We don't understand some of the data, but what we think we understand and from this table is that on the first line, South Frontage Road and Project Access A in the eastbound, what would be a right turn lane in the peak hour in the AM, there is 156, and I don't know if what that quantity represents, whether it's little cars or trucks or events or whatever it is, but that is the number. And that is the eastbound, which would be a right turn lane into the city furniture facility. Our concern is that then below that, you see the westbound left turn lane, and there is approximately half of the traffic in the eastbound. The point being that for any vehicle, either car or truck, to make a left turn, they have to have passage up from the eastbound traffic. So there's currently twice as much eastbound traffic as the westbound, but they have to have the clearance of the eastbound traffic to be able to make that left turn into the city furniture facility. So
you're really out of time, so can you come to a conclusion?
Okay, that the left turn lane is warranted.
And that's critical to you.
Yes, sir.
Any other points to make, sir?
No, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knoll. I appreciate your involvement. Yeah. I do suspect you'll be out there every day. So, yeah. Any other public comment? Yes, sir. Please come forward. Thanks for being here. Give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
Ron Thrasher, 410 Sun King Road, and I have been sworn in.
Thank you, Mr. Thresher.
I don't oppose the proposed deal there, but I understand that the 220 units is also on that, as for residential, is also on the agenda, and I'd like to make sure that is not on there. And also that the traffic, we've got two businesses on the other end of Sun King Road off of 92. Mm-hmm. Right now, they are both using using Sun King Road, which is not supposed to be. And I'd like to make sure this doesn't happen on the other end with big trucks and all this. Mm-hmm. So those are my concerns. And also, like he brought up on the turn lanes, and we've tried to get speed bumps, and the county tells us they are not available any longer, that they don't put them in. But since we've had I would say, apartment complex across the street from where this proposed commercial place is, we've had speeders running as high as 80 miles an hour on our road, and it gets kind of, we used to walk up and down the road and used to have our kids bicycle, but now it's out of the question. And one thing I would like to see if we could get speed bumps, because this is going to increase our traffic because of the people going to work there. And also everybody uses it to go around. But those are my concerns.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thresher. I appreciate you being here today. Those will be addressed in a moment, sir. Are there any other, anyone else wishing to make a public comment? Yes, sir. Are you raising your hand for a public comment? Yes, sir. Would you please step forward? give us your name and address and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
Well, I have not been sworn, and I didn't intend to speak.
Well, we can remedy that. Sir, would you address the clerk?
Yes, if you can please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Give us your name and address, please.
My name is Larry Woody. I live at 612 Sun King Road.
Okay.
Recently built a new house on the property, and I'd like to tell the developer I'm completely satisfied with his proposal. I'm not opposed to it. I'm asking for a couple of considerations. He's buffering the I-4 corridor with a wall to keep people from seeing the loading trucks and things going on there, which I'm agreeable with. I'd like for him to consider buffering at least part of the south and the southwest corner.
Okay.
So that from the residents that live south of this project, we don't have to see this parking lot full of trucks. Put up some kind of wall, tree buffer, whatever. You know, I'm in the construction business. Love to build this project for the owner, but regardless of who builds it, we'd just like some consideration for some buffer along the side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Woody. Appreciate that. We're still open for public comment. Is there anyone else? I'll ask one more time. Is there any other public comment? Okay, that closes public comment. Let me thank very much those of you that stepped forward. Staff, do you want to comment on any of this? I know the applicant will come back as well. Yeah.
Yes, I think most of the questions the applicant will answer.
Yes.
But I do believe we have the consultant that the city hired for the transportation study. And I think it's probably most important to hear from him first. And then we'll let the applicant answer the rest of the questions.
Okay. Thank you for being here. Give us your name and address and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
Yes, Robert Fulp. I'm a professional engineer with Links and Associates at 5023 West Laurel Street in Tampa.
Thank you, Mr. Fulp.
I have been
Appreciate
sworn
it.
in.
Thank you.
Yes, I hear some of the comments regarding traffic. So we prepared a study in accordance with the code for the city of Plant City, okay? The code is very specific. We submitted a methodology to the city and got it approved. So part of the study, we had to look at several intersections within a 2-mile radius of the proposed project, okay? And in the study, we only had to consider intersection analyses, not roadway analyses, okay? In the study, we considered 60% of the traffic would be coming and going to the west, about 35% of the traffic coming and going to the east, and 5% of the traffic coming and going from Sun King Road, okay? In developing our background traffic, we took existing counts. We drew those counts using peak season correction factors, a COVID-19 factor to account for the reduction in traffic over this past year. And we also grew the traffic by 1% per year up to the development year, 2025, what we consider. So in the analysis, we looked at Park and the frontage road. We looked at the 2 driveways along the frontage road, the project site, and we looked at Charlie Taylor. Okay. One quick point I want to make about Sun King Road. I said we had 5% of the traffic on Sun King Road. Again, some of that traffic to the project site will probably come from the south. But again, there's no driveway connection other than for emergency uses only. And so there's a knock box that an emergency vehicle could go in and knock it down to get in for an emergency situation. So just wanted to make that point. Now, a couple of comments. The one about the turn lanes. The frontage road is FDOT jurisdictional road. They own it, they maintain it. I've been told by my boss that FDOT is not allowing a left turn lane on the frontage road for whatever reason. I don't know what that reason is. I don't disagree that a westbound left turn lane could be warranted based on the numbers that I'm seeing. But again, FDOT, for whatever reason, is not allowing the westbound left turn lane. We do show that a eastbound right turn lane at the main driveway is definitely warranted. And again, there's two driveways. The main driveway will serve the majority of the traffic. The easternmost driveway will serve truck traffic only. So, and I must step back for a second. I didn't prepare this traffic study. I'm kind of pitch hitting for the person who did today. So anyway, I wanted to address that one comment. Again, we prepared the study in accordance with the city's regulations. We didn't have to look at traffic accidents, and I understand, you know, accidents are a concern for citizens, and rightfully so, but it's something we didn't have to consider in the study. Again, we didn't have to consider the roadway level of service, but I did take a quick look based on FDOT's capacity numbers and looked at our projected background plus project traffic for the AM and the PM, and we have lots of capacity along that frontage road. I mean, a lot. And I'm looking at the AM and the PM peak hours. We don't have daily numbers. Another concern was, did we look at traffic along I-4? We didn't have to consider traffic along I-4 because that's not part of the study methodology that we did. Let's see. Again, and the development of the background traffic, we considered a growth rate of 1% per year up to 2025. We didn't consider any other developments that are being planned in this area, and I understand there's some other developments in the area along Charlie Taylor Road, I believe. I know there's some concerns about levels of service, poor levels of service at the signalized intersections. That might be something that FDOT and the county can come back and look at, retiming the signals to get a little bit better progression and a little bit more traffic volume through the intersections. That's really about all. I was just trying to hit some of the points that the one gentleman gave to the board.
So Mr. Null's greatest concern was the turn, and you're saying FDOT is currently blocking anything like that?
And I don't know the reason why, sir. Again, my supervisor told me it's just a condition that the FDOT has, but it's my understanding that there's going to be some discussions with the FDOT about it. And if a westbound left turn lane is deemed appropriate and the DOT will allow it, it will be put in, because looking at the volumes, it would be warranted. Yeah.
So you aren't disputing that it's warranted, I just heard you say.
I believe it is warranted.
But right now, FDOT is not approving.
Exactly. Exactly.
What's the process to get it before FDOT? Has it been initiated, actually?
According to my supervisor, it has been initiated. There's going to be further discussion with the DOT.
Okay. Any questions for the gentleman on traffic studies? Bonnie, any questions for the gentleman on traffic studies?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Fogg. Appreciate you being here. Okay. Yes, please. There's no further comment from staff, correct? No further comment from staff? Okay.
I think I can answer some additional questions as well. Our team has had a preliminary meeting with FDOT, and I believe the next meeting is scheduled next week, Todd? Next week. So this issue will be the subject, included in that meeting, and we can report back obviously well before the city commission meeting on that left turn lane, and we'll make sure we get the contact information of the neighbors, and we'll keep them apprised of that situation as well.
Okay, well, let me clarify that. Are you advocating for that turn lane, or are you just trying to feel them out?
Well, yeah. I haven't spoken directly to Steve Henry, who prepared the analysis, Rob's supervisor. So I don't really know what he has done specifically, the city's transportation engineer that prepared the study. So I don't know the answer to that. I apologize.
Okay. Well, with the gentleman saying that it's warranted, I was hoping you would be advocating for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Clearly, it sounds like from the conversations that if FDOT permits us to put that turn lane in, we're happy to do that. It's just there's some issue, and I'm sorry we don't have more information about that.
Okay. Thank you.
I did want to address Mr. Mall's concerns. We deliberately did not have an access point on Sun King Road because of the neighbors. we made that decision, and it was actually very difficult for truck transportation to try to figure out how to design the plan. And that plan was designed and redesigned to make sure that we did not have to access Sun Keene Road for that particular purpose. We also have, this addresses Mr. Woody's concerns as well. And Sheila, would you show Mr. Woody, if you don't mind? So Mr. Woody, we're going to show you just up close where the buffer goes. He requested a buffer along the western boundary and the southern boundary. It does exist with an 8-foot wall or PVC fence. So that's already incorporated into our plan as of today. And we'll show him exactly where that is so that he understands. With respect to worrying about people coming in and out of that access, I just wanted to explain the knock box actually blocks anyone's ability to go in and out. So only emergency vehicles would have to run it over to get in. And with that, I will answer any additional questions, and we have all of our consultants here as well if you have any specific technical questions.
I think we've covered what I heard come up. Staff, Robin looks anxious to say something.
Just one question that, I won't touch anything, you can. Just one question that wasn't answered. Those 220 residential units are eliminated as part of this request. There are no residential units as part of this request. If this request were to be denied today, then yes.
Theoretically,
but with this rezoning, they're looking to eliminate those residential units.
Yes.
And just to clarify on the requirements of the code, we have a section that basically lays out for our transportation engineers exactly what they're supposed to study. And if it turns out at this point that the transportation study, he's saying that the turn lane is warranted. The study specifically says it is not warranted.
Oh.
So, I just wanted to make that clear that the way that the study was presented, the one that we have that was prepared, says that the left turn lane is not warranted. Now, it's up to the applicant if they want to provide that, to appease the concerns of the residents. But as far as what we received, it says it is not warranted. If they come to the conclusion that it is, then they should revise the study and provide us a new.
Is there currently access from the PD on Sun Keene? So there's, as of today,
I don't know. I have to look at it. I don't know off the top of my head.
Repeat the question and the answer.
I would assume so for the residential portion, because the southern piece was approved as a 20-lot subdivision. So that one did have access, but the industrial uses were over to the east. So that would have only had direct access to frontage. On the western side of the property, there were some retail and some office uses, but I'm not sure if those particular uses had access on the Sun Keene. But the residential did.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you. Clarified that turn lane issue may be problematic. So, thank you. Any comments? Any further comments? Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? Any discussion?
Move for approval. Move for approval. Find it consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, we have a motion by Bonnie Carr. Is there a second?
I will second that.
I think I heard a second from Mr. Jones. So we have a motion by Bonnie, second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion of the motion? Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Board Member Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you all for taking the time to be here today and share your insight and knowledge with us and your concerns.
Can I make a quick comment?
Comment from Mr. Jones. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say, one of my big things I like to give back to the community. So I was glad to hear that City Furniture gives back to the community. Look forward to seeing City Furniture in this community and then having this business here. So again, giving back to the community to me means a lot. So thank you to City Furniture for giving back to the community. Sounds like we have a few things to work out, but I'm hoping it works out well. So thank you.
And the waterbed that my boys slept on, we've cut it up into pieces and use it underneath a tent when we go camping. So it lives on. Okay, we have one agenda item left. It's item PB 2021-10, which is the Avalenta preliminary plat. Staff's going to address us. Thank you, sir.
Good morning again, board. My name is Ross Einstetter, planner with the city of Plant City. The item before you is going to be PB 2021-10 for Avalenta preliminary plat and waiver request. So the preliminary plat is to establish a 31-lot single-family subdivision with a waiver from the installation of reclaimed water lines. The location is on the northeast corner of Trapnell Road West and Daniels Road. The zoning is PD, planned development with a future land use of mixed-use gateway. At 8.96 acres, the proposed 31-lot subdivision would have a density of 3.45 units per acre. And the smallest proposed lot would be 60 by 100, 6,000 square feet, which is larger than the minimum 50-foot wide lot noted within the PD zoning district. Here is a plan of what they're proposing for the preliminary plat. The waiver is from providing reclaimed water is being requested. The Utilities Department has no objections to the waiver request, noting that the reclaimed water is not available to the site. Staff has reviewed the preliminary plat and associated waiver for the Avalenta subdivision for consistency with the technical requirements of Chapter 94, Chapter 102, and the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. Staff recommends the planning board find the preliminary plat for Avalenta consistent with the technical requirements noted above, and recommends approval of the preliminary plat and associated waiver, and to forward the waiver request to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval.
Thank you, sir.
And that concludes staff's presentation, and the applicant is here for this one.
The what, sir?
The applicant is here.
Oh,
for this one.
excellent,
Do you have any
excellent.
questions?
Do we have any questions for staff? Board, Bonnie, any questions for staff? Okay.
I guess, again, waiver on the reclaimed water. Do we have an update? I know for the last few years, we've said it's not available. So obviously if someone's developing currently, but we're talking about planned development. I'm just looking forward. Do we have any update when the reclaimed water, like just tentatively, might be available?
If you're not qualified to answer that today, we can put it on the agenda for our next meeting. So.
Okay, yeah, it's just an open question because it seems like it's been several years since we initially addressed the fact that development continues prior to that, and we're making approvals with waivers. So I'm just, I mean, that question can be in the future. Thanks.
All right, well, let me suggest that be added to the agenda for next month's meeting. If we get a report on the status of our expansion of reclaimed water. Yeah, if there is any. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions from board members? Would the applicant like to speak on the issue? If you'd come forward, give us your name, address, and state for the record that you've been sworn in.
My name is Bob Schmidt. Excuse me. My address is 901 South Forest Drive, Tampa, Florida. I have been sworn in. I represent the applicant, and I'd like to answer any questions you might have regarding this request.
That's pretty straightforward, but let me see. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, I'm good. Any questions, Bonnie, for the applicant?
No, none. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. Appreciate you being here. Yeah. There's an opportunity now for public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on PB 2021-10? I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on 2021-10? Okay, seeing none, that closes public comment. Staff, any further comments? Applicant, any further comments? Board, what's your thoughts? Any discussion necessary? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I move for approval, providing it meets the Plan City Comprehensive Plan.
Okay, we have Mr. Rodwell making a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
I've got a second from Mr. Jones. So Mr. Rodwell, seconded by Mr. Jones. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
Board Member Wood,
Yes.
Board Member Carr,
Yes.
Board Member Driggers,
Yes.
Board Member Rodwell,
Yes.
Board Member Jones.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Other business that might come before the commission. Mr. Buckman asked for a moment to speak on something that came up at, I guess, the last board meeting. Mr. Buckman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last meeting, I was asked to look into a situation where development had been purchased for leased housing. And the concern was that it was contrary to representations that were made to the planning board, to the fact that it was supposed to be a 55-plus community. The planning staff listened to the audio of the meeting and determined nothing was discussed at all at the time of the zoning when it came before the planning board, or the first discussion was when the preliminary plat was before the planning board. And I wanted to read a little bit from the transcript, but essentially the applicant, which was Bill Sullivan, responded to questions from the planning board. And probably the first relevant question would be from Art Wood, how many do you think will be 2-story units? And Bill Sullivan said this is going to be age targeted, this community. So most likely it will be 1-story, will be age targeted to seniors. Art and Jeremy says, okay. Bonnie then says, so like a 55 and above? She specifically asked that question. And Bill Sullivan says, no, won't be a 55 and older, will be age targeted to senior. That doesn't mean that a family can't move in there as well. Clubhouse and everything is being proposed as age targeted. So from my reading of it, no, he did not say that it was age, he said it was age targeted and that that was from how they were being marketing. He did not say that it was 55 and over community. There's nothing, once this is developed, once the property is developed, there's nothing that would prevent an owner from converting their properties or leasing out the properties that they would have. Zoning deals with the use of land, doesn't really deal with ownership. Typically, the leased properties are in apartments, and that would be resolved by use of your density. When you have density like R20 or something like that, that would be something you would consider. This is a little bit unusual because it's actually a leased home, so the density is the same as you would have in a single family or residential. Again, there's nothing in the code that would prevent an owner from renting their properties. And in light of Bert Harris, I don't know how the city could adopt a code and say you can't lease out your properties, because that's part of the bundle of sticks that people have in their rights, their property rights to their ownership. And in fact, very recently, there's actually a bill before the legislature to specifically address short-term or vacation rentals, and they've actually already prohibited it, but they're even making those prohibitions even stronger. That's the proposal. But in the background information that was provided, the legislative analysis, they point out that City of Anna Maria passed an ordinance in looks like in 2015, which predated the prohibitions the legislature had. But so they had some regulations dealing with vacation rentals. There were approximately 113 Bert Harris cases, which could amount to, they state, $38 million in damages. And that's just for short-term rentals. So as a practical matter, I don't think you can prohibit somebody from leasing out their property. In this case, you have a situation where at the time that the question was asked, it was probably a true statement that they were trying to target their development, but it has since been conveyed. And then when they convey the property, somebody else may have other plans,
as long as it's consistent with the code, there's no way that the staff could be able to say, no, you can't do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with asking the question, is this going to be used for leased housing? But the problem was, in many cases, the developer's not going to know. They're even in the early, that's at the preliminary plat, they're in the early stages. If somebody comes out and they want to buy all, whatever, 60 lots or whatever it is of the development, it's not that they're misrepresenting anything, they just simply don't know. But the question could be asked, it may have limited value if one, they don't know, they don't have a particular development in mind, or they do have a development in mind, but they later change their mind. But in any event, I just wanted to report back. I was asked. I did talk to Jeremy about this on the phone last week, because I know he had initiated a discussion on it.
He's satisfied at this point?
I don't know. He's satisfied, but
he's a hard man to satisfy.
But I did explain to him and reported him essentially what I just told you.
Okay.
I'm not sure he was going to be satisfied, but I'm not sure that's what we want for the community. Like, to me personally, I want people who buy a house, to me, invest in the community. I mean, my first house here, I knew this is where I was going to raise my family and invest my time and give back to the community. And I think if you rent a house, lease a house, you're not going to invest as much. So I'm not sure we're going to be happy, but if there's nothing we can do about it, I guess that's kind of where we're at. And
I think that's fair for comment for what.
we can ask the question and maybe guide people and to what we want. But,
I think in large part it was a question of transparency. It's not a question that you have apartment complexes that come in before you or multi-residential type development. I think the question is one of transparency. We asked, he recollected that he asked that question, and it came out something different. And so I think it's
not what we were thinking.
Yeah, and so I think like I said, it's a question of transparency, and certainly you can ask a question and you may not. It's like asking somebody what purchase price you think that the properties will sell for. Well, they'll give you a rough guesstimate, but all kinds of things change in terms of what the values would be. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to make a comment. Attorney Buckman, thank you for looking into that. And I guess I'd say I'm not surprised with the report that you made. I recall there was something similar in Illinois. It ended up being a huge lawsuit. Actually, my husband's mother led this thing. It was called the Contract Buyers League. And it was kind of a similar situation where, homeowners thought they were buying, but turned out that there were some unscrupulous things in the contract to acquire the property. My concern when I heard that was I didn't think it really was going to impact our work or redirect our work. But I wonder if the city really needs to keep an eye on this so that, it really does not develop into a situation like the Contract Buyers League, where people are misled thinking that they're buying a home only to find out that it's very difficult to get out of the leasing arrangement. And, the type of residents that would be attracted obviously are people who hope to buy a home. And I don't have a problem with that at all. I just think the transparency from the developer down to the purchaser or renter, should be scrutinized to make sure that, people moving into those homes are not misled.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Mr. Buckman. Any other comments on that issue? Okay, thank you. We'll consider that closed. Thank you for your report. Any other business to come before the group? I saw there was no absentee report. I think everybody was here last month, so thank you. Anything else?
I hope to attend in person next month. I'm all vaccinated. I feel pretty safe.
She will be here next month in person.
Woohoo!
We are looking forward to seeing you.
We look forward to it.
Just a quick.
I miss you guys. Look forward to seeing everyone.
So a bad thing about.
Julie's gonna do some introductions here, Bonnie, so stand by. Yeah.
I wanted to introduce Josh Blackman. He's our new planner on staff. He started Monday, so you'll see his face at meeting.
What's the name again?
Josh Blackman.
Blackman. Welcome. Thank you. Good. Glad you're here. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Any other business to come before the group? I got 10:37. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Sounds right.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. It was a good meeting.
Yeah.